because what you, the unsung heroes in the wastewater industry, do matters. Every Wednesday, join me, Suzanne Chin Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, a longtime veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry, as I interview guests who are making an impact on how we manage and operate systems for conveying and treating wastewater. I'll also be speaking with representatives of organizations that are utilizing disruptive or new technologies, and executives who are going to share how to be successful and sustainable in our vital industry. So whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology in treatment or trenchless, gain tips on training and retaining great talent, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us again on this week's episode of the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. Today, we're visiting with Chad Smeltzer of Bidcurement. And welcome to the show, Chad.
Oh, thank you for having me, Susan. This is a great opportunity, and thanks for the invite.
Sure thing. Well, you and I met at the recent WWETT show and opened up a dialogue, which is why we invited you to come here on the show today, was that you come from a background of contracting and decided to do what you're doing now as a result of seeing some issues out there as it results to procurement. Now, I know some of you may be going, oh God, procurement, Snoresville. However, this topic is very interesting and timely because we all need to make best use of our time, and we all want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. And also to be profitable. So there's something that we're going to be talking about for everybody in our industry, whether you're coming from the municipal side looking to hire or get equipment and resources, or you're a contractor or a manufacturer looking to sell your wares and your services. So with that said, Chad, we started talking about the history of procurement and what have been some of the downfalls, like where we've been, where we are, and where we could be. And I'd like for you to just kind of give me your take on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Procurement has been very antiquated in government. It's a process that I, as a contractor, this all kind of started in 2020. I was a contractor sitting at home like everyone else. We were still trying to find procurement opportunities as we always were. But this time it was a little different because we were trying to find those opportunities through different bid aggregate services that were out there, different government websites that were posting these procurement opportunities. And then we were trying to find those documents that we could download. And hopefully we got notified, but sometimes we didn't. And then we would get projects. We would have to go through them, fill them out. Hopefully we wanted to bid on them. And then we would have to go hand deliver them because the Postal Service wasn't really doing much at that time. And then some of these last minute decisions we were making, we had to drive to these government facilities and hand deliver these bid packages. And that's how this all started. I'm like, wait, it's 2020 and we're still hand delivering these bid packages? There's got to be a better way. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's very archaic. Even as I was a project manager, even before 2020, it was always made no sense to me why we were going through these bid specifications of construction projects. And we were looking at 50 to 100 pages of these specifications that were redundant. Then sometimes they didn't make no sense at all. They were copy and pasted. They were just constant, just jargon of nonsense sometimes. And I hate to put it that way, but that's really what was happening. It's like the engineers, nothing against them, but they're not English grammar professors. And they were just putting together bid specs, slapping them together and putting them out there. So Bidcurement developed in 2020 as a result of the procurement system processes that are all paper. And not only that, it was a point in time where as a homeowner, I was hiring a contractor to come look at my floors and sand the floors and stain them for me. And he came in and he ended up giving me COVID just because he had to come in and do measurements of the floor. And I was like thinking to myself as a contractor, I shouldn't even have to come there with technology the way it is nowadays. you can actually take images, videos, everything's remote now. You can take 3D scans of your rooms and take measurements. And why aren't we using that in a procurement system so that we can see the opportunity and then we can bid on it? And that's really how Bidcurement kind of came to fruition, was because obviously government's antiquated already. And then the contractor side was also archaic too. So it's two archaic systems that needs a marketplace that can revolutionize both sides, really.
Well, you made a really good point there, because as you know, my foray or my beginnings in this industry was in CCTV equipment sales and marketing. And a lot of things that I heard, from especially contractors that would do rehabilitation, is that often you'd bid on a project, but you were going in blind. And you had mentioned to me, and part of this procurement process is that it would enable, if we really went about it a different way, for a good example would be a sewer rehab project, CIPP or whatever they're going to do, is that for a municipality to be able to supply with the bid package all of the video footage of the condition of the pipeline, and not just description or reports. So in my mind, something, just that one little feature would truly allow a contractor to be able to bid more accurately and know what they're getting into. So there wouldn't have to be change orders, or they get in and go, ooh, gosh, wasn't planning on that. And now, is that job going to be as profitable as you hoped it would be? Or you're in a situation where you have to go back to the asset owner and doing, oh, by the way. And nobody likes to have to deliver the oh, by the way, and nobody certainly wants to be receiving the oh, by the way, when there's bypass equipment and a community is disrupted. And so I just thought, when you were relaying that's fantastic. And so with a platform like this, gathering all that, since the cities do have all these documentations in some electronic format, how difficult is it for them to really gather all this together? Is this going to create more work for them to give all this data? Or in the end, is it going to actually benefit the city?
That's a great question. Most of the data is already in a format that's readable or visually. You can display it. So it's just a matter of being able to take the data and present it in a right way so that a contractor can understand it. That's probably the best way to describe it. So there's different components to a procurement process. You have specification documents, you have the boilerplated legal documents that all come with these bid packages. And then you have to be able to sign off on those. And, there's a bunch of process to procurement, but the one thing is like making sure you have the documents filled out and everything's done correctly. But, the main thing is, like you were just saying, is taking that data that's already there and presenting it in the right way so that everyone can understand it. And that's what Bidcurement's technology is working on. We're working on a system that will take the data. We can actually take the data from the field and execute procurement within hours. And that's our goal. That's our vision, is to be able to do that. Take the engineering process. Obviously, we go out in the field, we're using robotic cameras to televise the sewer. We can upload that right into the cloud right away and put it into a software system and use that information to publish it right off to contractors right away. And we're going to do that on the Bidcurement platform. We can do it now, actually. So a lot of it would just kind of have the engineers signing off on it. So now we're streamlining the process from what would take months of writing bid specs, planning, organizing things, making sure you got the right materials, to where maybe you already know what liner you're going to put in. All you need is the camera footage, and then publish it on the procurement system that competitively bids. It meets all the compliance, and you're streamlining the procurement system like completely within hours, days. You can set the time and however you want to set up the system.
Now, when we're talking, we've been talking primarily about services and contracts, but how can this be beneficial for procurement for equipment? because I'd like a little comparison, because I'm more familiar with things like that was what the HGAC buy board was supposed to be all about, or what's the other one, co-stars, to make it easier for cities to go and shop for the things that they wanted without having to put out all these bid specs, get 3 bids back, because all of the competitive analysis and all of that vetting was already done for them, kind of like piggybacking off of somebody else's bid. And so how is this similar, or is it slightly different? Can you kind of explain how that all works?
No, that's a great question. So if we look at those nonprofit government organizations like Buy Board, co-stars, Sourcewell, what they're designed to do is get a expedited procurement system, because it's so much red tape in competitive bidding, because it's not an easy process. The quickest way to do it is sole source contracts. So obviously, as a contractor, you want to get your obviously services, products, materials, whatever, on those buy boards or Sourcewells, because it's just an easy way to execute procurement. It gets around all the red tape and you just move right through there. So as far as what we do at Bidcurement is, we don't necessarily, how do I describe it? We basically create the competitive bidding environment to keep it compliant, if that makes any sense, because everything's processed, it's timed, you plug and play, you make it customized, trying to get the right word. You can customize the system so that you're still meeting the requirements for competitive bidding through the FAR Act. And that's where Bidcurement makes a big difference. And I'm not saying that that's a bad system, but to be honest with you, you're not getting the best pricing. We were on those buy board systems. We're giving you full price, and you're paying a markup fee by using that system of like 2.5% in some situations, whatever the markup might be for that nonprofit. So our systems, there's no charge until you're awarded the contract. So you're actually going to bypassing, there's no subscription fees. You're actually just paying when you're awarded and you're the actual winner of the bid.
So using a system like this, whether it be yours or something else similar, there's typically no charge for the municipality. It all comes from the bid award winner. Correct.
Right.
Typically. Okay. All right. I just wanted to be really clear for that. And so it sounds like it's creating kind of a win-win to streamline all, like you were saying, all of the red tape, all of the things that the city has to do. And I would think by having all of that together, they're going to get better bids from truly qualified contractors. And so I want to shift gears here, because something that you had shared with me that I thought was really important, because it benefits the city too, but it's more for the contractor, is that the benefit for them is that on some of those other bid alert systems, and I don't want to name names, but sometimes it's coming after the fact, or it's very challenging to sort through all of the bids that are coming through, and things that come up on the search. You have to open each one to try to figure out, wait a minute, is this something that I'm actually qualified to do? Is it a good fit for me? Is it in the region I want? Do I have the equipment? Do I have the expertise? All the things that go along with that. And so for a contractor, you had shared with me that it helps, using a system like this can help contractors find the right work by you're kind of using AI under search words, which I thought was kind of cool. So tell me about that. How is that actually going to work for a contractor coming onto the platform?
Yeah, so we can curate documents, obviously, and pull a lot of that information off those documents through AI. You can process that, and you can also take let's say, other analytics out in the internet and start to combine them to do predictive analysis of where procurement opportunities might exist. Okay. So our AI system is going to replace the commodity code system. Now, that sounds crazy, right? But the commodity codes are used a lot right now. And as a contractor, I could make myself a utility contractor, right? Or specifically sewer utility contractor. And these other systems that are out there, they really don't match you up. And the only reason is there's two problems. Their system doesn't use AI. And the other problem is the engineers that are putting together the bid specification packages, the titles are off, the scope of projects are off, and they don't match up good on those type of systems. So every time you go to search, you're not getting the right procurement opportunities. And you're seeing water or asphalt rehab, resurfacing with manhole rehabilitation at the same. And why we're still packaging those things together, we need to start separating those things out.
Yeah, you mentioned to me about, those contracts where, let's say you are someone that does just manhole rehabilitation, but the project is going out for a much bigger scope than that. And that is one small section of it. And so you can't bid on it. But in a system like this, a prime who would handle the whole thing would have an easier time of then finding the subs.
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, something that I had an interesting conversation with a woman. Her episode is going to be airing, where we were talking about prime and sub and how it works when you're a minority business or a women-owned business and you're certified, in that some of these primes, when they're being awarded these government contracts, have to show that they are utilizing a certain percentage for disadvantaged businesses to show diversification. And so does this system allow for that kind of certification where the primes could actually search for those contractors or label it as such that I'm going to go after this big bid, but I don't do this part and I would really like it to go to? I know that's kind of an off question.
No, you
just figured I'd throw that
it
out there, just because I was just thinking about the way that she was saying that she is finding most of her work, because she's never a prime. She's one small part of usually a typical retrofit in a wastewater treatment plant or a new build.
Yeah. So my experience with that as a subcontractor, most of the time, because we did a lot of manhole rehabilitation.
Okay.
It was a lot of emails, phone calls, back and forth. And honestly, I couldn't keep track of it on my emails. I'm dealing with my project management of these projects, as well as I'm trying to get general contractors quotes to rehab these manholes for certain projects. And it was just a tedious process of sending quotes to them through the email process. It's just, and it kind of got redundant because you boilerplate the quote, because you're like, there's 5 GCs on a project. Now I'm just sending out quotes constantly. And then they're like having me change them up, or maybe I missed something. So when we talk about minority businesses, that was the other issue. Is I was working on a job in Decatur, for example, Decatur, Illinois. They wanted minority participation. I was looking for a minority business to help me facilitate the procurement opportunity, because it was a percentage. I think 5-10% needed to be minority participation. And we couldn't find a minority business. So there's no sources out there to say, hey, this is a minority business and you should contact them to fill this whole procurement opportunity. And there was no resource there. And it also goes for the government side, as the buyers, when they need to find minority participation in their projects, they didn't have a resource tool to reach out and look for. Even if you got on Google, it's very hard to just find minority businesses for their search optimization. So we built in Bidcurement a search optimization for helping you filter through and finding minority businesses within geographical areas. It streamlines the process, and you can work with them directly on our platform.
Wow. So when you were saying about the streamlining, you were just talking about the follow-up, just because there is so much electronic communication and things kind of get lost in I call it the email ozone ether, whatever you want to call it. People say, oh, I never got it. And then you miss an opportunity because it was late. Maybe it's sitting in the spam box and whatnot. So it sounds to me like you found a way to kind of get around that so that you're able to track where things are. But what I really liked was being able to search to make sure the curated content of, is this something that I actually should be spending my time looking at and maybe thinking about throwing my hat in the ring for?
Yeah. And
what an incredible time saver.
Yeah. And here's some use case from last year. I was working with one of the contractors that does a lot of trenchless tech, installing
Right.
of pipes, rehabilitation of manholes, things like that. And they told me that they were winning only 17% of these contracts. And 17% to them is not a lot. I mean, out of 1,500 solicitations, they were actually 3,000 solicitations they were actually filtering through. 1,500 of them, basically an average of what they would potentially look at seriously to bid on. And maybe they would only, let's say they bid on all of them. They were only going to win 17% of those. That was their average. And then the amount of money they were spending on these procurement opportunities to try and find them, and estimators going out and looking at these projects, was they were spending $1.5 million a year trying to chase down government procurement opportunities. No wonder nobody wants to work with government. Like, those kind of numbers, if you did that in the private sector, you would be out of business. Like, and actually it does happen a lot in the private sector too, with some of these commercial construction companies. I've been talking to them here in Chicago, and they're dealing with the same problem. The industry is pretty tight, and you're razor thin margins on some of these projects, and it kind of goes into where they're not seeing projects correctly, and they're not quoting them correctly, or they're not understanding the projects correctly, and they're losing revenue. It's a really difficult system to deal with right now. It is.
Wow. Well, I know that you offer a demo tour of this. And so for those who might be interested in seeing what this is like and how they might be able to utilize it for their procurement, and for those that are actually looking for work, visit Bidcurement, that's BIDCUREMENT.com, and sign up for a free trial. But before we go, Chad, just coming from a municipal standpoint, but maybe more from the contractor's perspective, can you leave us with some words of wisdom? I call them pearls of wisdom, for why we should really be looking at changing the way that we are putting things out for bid, and the way that we are going about looking to bid and ultimately bidding on work.
Yeah, I would say this. You have $1 trillion infrastructure bill coming out. You have a paper procurement system that's in place. How is that going to work when the federal government's handing out all these billions of dollars for infrastructure projects, and you have an archaic procurement system? It's going to be crazy. It could be wasteful. I mean, if we don't revolutionize and digitize these procurement processes, we're still looking at this whole infrastructure of maybe poor workmanship, no accountability. We got to get a system in place that actually has accountability. It's transparent. There's compliance. There's a place where everyone can work together, bid on projects, and streamline the whole process. Instead of months, we can do it in days, maybe hours. That's what a digital procurement system can do. And that's what we're doing at Bidcurement. We're revolutionizing the whole procurement process for government and just buyers in general, buyers and sellers in general. It's a two-sided problem. So that's what our marketplace does. It streamlines government procurement, and we're digitizing the specification documents.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
you.
you. Yeah, thank you. It's not that we're going to have to, not utilize some of these other tools that we've been using for a while, because, like with any disruptive or new technology or new approach to something that's been so ingrained, it's going to take a while to catch on.
Right.
But it's really neat to see that someone from within the industry that faced these issues was saying, there's got to be a better way, and is leading the charge to bring us into the, bring us into the digital age. I mean, we're already there, but yeah, I have seen that there are certain things within our industry, although, me, this is where my heart is that we do have a tendency to be slow adopters on certain things, but items that can help with the bottom line and productivity and getting things done faster and for less money, like what you were talking about, 17% and how much money has to be spent to try to get that 17%. And maybe there's money involved, but you got to put a price tag on time.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's time is worth something.
Right.
And think about even like the consulting engineers or a city engineer that has to put that big package together. Instead of doing that paperwork, that routine cut and paste paperwork, maybe his time could be better spent on really cool projects and letting him be a creative engineer to solve problems rather than putting bid packets together. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And so, you know, thank you for, you know, the chance to open dialogue with you at the show and learn more about this, because even though it's not typically a subject that we think about, it is something that can help everybody across the board just do their jobs better and be more efficient.
Yeah. And that's what we need, because look at it this way. We don't have a workforce out there right now that's even, you know, when all this infrastructure dollars come into place, these contractors aren't going to have time. They're going to be chasing people to work for them. They're going to spend all their time just trying to get workers to fulfill all these procurement requests. They need a streamlined procurement system.
Yeah, we know the hiring day. That's a huge issue right now. And so, there's another angle or another reason why we should be really looking to move in this direction, because, you know, even on the city side, you know, when I interview people for MSW Mag and TPO, I ask them, what's your biggest challenge right now? And they'll name a number of them, but the first thing that always comes out of their mouth is finding people and keeping them.
Yep.
And so that's just, there you have it. There you have it. Here's one way that if that is something that you're challenged with, here's something that can maybe help you when you're short-staffed.
Yeah. And there's Bidcurement as it grows down the road. I hope that I can facilitate some of that, you know, problem as well, and we can solve some of those problems. That's kind of where the marketplace plays a role too, where you have maybe a place where skilled laborers can all connect together as well and work together. So if there is a shortage of workers, we really don't have a place to find those workers right now. If we're looking for skilled infrastructure laborers, Bidcurement will have a place where a lot of those users will be on our platform using it.
Oh, that's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Building community. Building community.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
thank you so much.
It has been an absolute delight having you on the show and learning more about this technology and how it can help the industry. And, you know, thank you for sharing it. And again, for those of you interested, I invite you to go and take a demo of the software. And I think you'll be quite pleased and surprised with how easy this is to utilize and take advantage of for whatever role you play in the industry. So again, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of Smells Like Money. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or simply tell a friend about the show, because that would help us out a lot too. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest for the show, email guest@smellslikemoneymedia.com. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the topics you'd like to talk about, and we'll be in touch. For more information about our family of marketing, international business development, and workforce training companies dedicated to the empowerment and education of our industry, call us at 760-217-8010 or email me at raven@creativeraven.com. Until next week, a big shout out to all my industry friends and those who will be. You're my superheroes.